what you're seeing.
Follow me. The tribal girl's voice barely rose above the storm while distant torchlights moved through the jungle behind us. I followed her deeper into the rainforest, even though every instinct screamed not to trust her anymore, because something felt wrong now. She knew too much. The tribe obeyed her too carefully, and the way the chief looked at her during the ritual, that wasn't how a leader looked at an ordinary villager. The deeper we traveled, the stranger the jungle became. The trees here were enormous, ancient. Their roots twisted above the ground like giant skeletal remains, while strange white flowers grew from the bark itself. And hanging from those flowers were human teeth, hundreds of them. The tribal girl noticed me staring. They leave offerings for the forest. Offerings to what? She stayed silent. That terrified me more than any answer. After nearly an hour, we reached a hidden cave concealed behind thick vines and roots. Inside, old torches burned along stone walls covered in carvings. Not primitive carvings, detailed ones, stories. The walls showed generations of outsiders entering the jungle, then kneeling before the tribe, then disappearing. One carving showed something horrifying, a massive shadow-like creature towering above the trees while the tribe worshipped beneath it. The same creatures from the rescue team footage. My blood turned cold instantly. What is that? The girl stared at the carvings silently before answering. The guardians. The cave suddenly felt freezing. She lit another torch and continued deeper. The jungle protects us. No, I whispered. Something in this jungle protects you. She finally looked at me directly, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, real fear. Then quietly she said, "Our tribe made a promise long ago." The torchlight flickered across the cave walls while rain echoed outside. What kind of promise? Her voice trembled slightly. A long time ago, outsiders came here carrying disease and fire. The carvings showed villages burning, bodies piled beneath trees, starving tribal people kneeling beside rivers filled with corpses. Our ancestors were dying. Then the carvings changed, the tribe entering deep caves beneath the jungle, and there, they found something ancient, something living beneath the forest, the shadow creatures. The guardians offered protection. I stared at her speechless. In exchange for what? The girl looked away. Blood, silence filled the cave. The rain outside grew louder. The tribe feeds outsiders to those things. She nodded slowly. If the rituals stop, her voice cracked slightly, the jungle dies. That sentence sounded insane, but then she led me outside the cave toward a cliff overlooking the rainforest below, and what I saw there destroyed every rational thought left in my mind. The jungle beneath us was moving, breathing. Massive root systems pulsed slowly beneath the forest floor like veins beneath skin. Entire sections of trees shifted unnaturally together. The rainforest wasn't normal, it was alive somehow. The girl whispered softly beside me. The guardians became part of the jungle long ago. I remembered the moving trees around my camp, the disappearing trails, the spinning compass. The jungle itself had been trapping me. Then another horrifying realization hit me. That's why nobody escapes. She nodded. The forest chooses who leaves. Thunder exploded overhead, then suddenly, tribal horns echoed through the jungle. Deep, violent, close. The girl's face went pale instantly. They found us. Torchlights appeared everywhere below the cliff now. Hundreds of them moving through the rainforest, not just hunters, the entire tribe, and at the center stood the chief. Even from that distance, I could feel his rage. The girl grabbed my arm urgently. "There's no more time. Who are you really?" For several seconds she said nothing. Then finally, "My name is Hyana, the chief's daughter." The realization hit immediately. That's why nobody questioned her during the ritual, why she spoke English secretly, why she could move through the jungle freely. She wasn't helping me because she pitied me. She had power there, and suddenly I understood something even worse. "You chose me," I whispered. Her eyes filled with guilt instantly. "Yes, why?" Hyana looked toward the approaching tribe below, then softly answered, "Because the guardians chose you first." Before I could understand what she meant, the ground beneath us suddenly trembled violently, trees swayed. Birds exploded from the canopy, screaming into the storm, and somewhere deep beneath the jungle, something enormous moved. Then came the sound, a roar, not animal, not human, ancient. The entire rainforest went silent afterward. Every tribesperson below dropped to their knees instantly, even the chief. Gianna's face filled with terror. They're awake. The roar echoed beneath the rainforest like the earth itself screaming. Every tree around us trembled violently while distant birds exploded into the sky in massive black clouds. And below the cliff, the entire tribe dropped to their knees, even the chief. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. The jungle had become completely silent again. Gianna grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "We need to hide." "For what?" Her terrified expression answered before her words did. "The Guardians." Then the ground shook again, stronger this time. Massive roots beneath the forest floor twisted upward like giant serpents moving beneath skin. I stumbled backward, nearly falling off the cliff edge while thunder cracked overhead. And somewhere below us, something huge moved through the jungle canopy. Not walking, crawling. The trees bent unnaturally as it passed beneath them. Gianna dragged me toward the cave immediately. "Hurry!" The tribe below started chanting desperately now, not celebrating, praying, begging. The chief raised both arms toward the forest while screaming something in their language. Then dozens of tribespeople began throwing animals into giant ritual fires below. Offerings, sacrifices. Trying to calm whatever had awakened. We barely reached the cave entrance before the forest exploded. A massive shape burst upward through the canopy hundreds of feet away. For one horrifying second, lightning illuminated it completely, and my mind nearly broke. It looked human, but wrong. Its body stretched impossibly tall and thin like roots twisted into human form. Mud and vines covered its skin while enormous antler-like branches grew from its head. Its arms dragged across the jungle floor like giant skeletal limbs, and where its face should have been, there was only darkness. No eyes. No mouth, just a black hollow void swallowing rain and light around it. The Guardian. My legs gave out instantly. Gianna covered my mouth before I could scream. "Do not let it hear you." The creature moved silently despite its size. The jungle itself bent around it. Trees twisted aside for it naturally like servants bowing before a king. Then it stopped. Slowly, its hollow face turned toward the village below. The tribe immediately began screaming in worship. The chief stepped forward carrying a terrified young prisoner toward the fire, not an outsider. One of their own people. My stomach twisted instantly. They sacrificed their own people too. Gianna's eyes filled with tears. "If outsiders don't come," she whispered softly, "the Guardians still must feed." The prisoner screamed while tribesmen dragged him toward the ritual platform. And suddenly I understood the horrifying truth. The tribe weren't controlling the Guardians. They were terrified slaves feeding them constantly just to survive. The chief raised his ceremonial blade toward the creature towering above the village, and the Guardians slowly leaned downward, watching, waiting. Then the prisoner started screaming my name. "Daniel, help me!" I froze because I recognized him. One of the rescue team members, alive, barely. The tribe had kept him alive for the ritual. The man sobbed violently while being forced toward the altar. "Please." Gianna grabbed my arm harder. "You cannot help him. We can't just watch this." "Yes, we can." Her voice cracked with panic. "If the Guardians see us," she whispered, "they will never stop hunting." Below us, the ritual intensified. The tribe painted symbols across the prisoner's body while drums pounded louder and louder beneath the storm. Then the Guardian moved again. Massive root-like limbs lowered slowly toward the village. The rain itself seemed to bend around the creature unnaturally, and suddenly I realized something horrifying. The thing wasn't just alive. It was connected to the jungle, every root, every tree, every movement in the forest. The entire rainforest was part of it somehow. The rescue team survivor screamed one final time before the chief raised the blade. Then lightning flashed, and the Guardian struck, fast. Way too fast for something that massive. One enormous skeletal limb slammed downward into the ritual platform, exploding wood, fire, and blood across the village. The man vanished instantly. The tribe screamed in worship while the creature dragged something mangled back into the darkness beneath the trees. The sounds that followed, I'll hear them for the rest of my life. Bones cracking, wet tearing, feeding sounds. Gianna buried her face against the cave wall, crying silently. I stood frozen, unable to breathe. Then suddenly the guardian stopped eating. Slowly, its hollow face lifted toward the cliff. Toward us, my blood turned ice cold, because even without eyes, I knew it sensed us. Gianna whispered one horrifying sentence, "It knows you're here now." Then the creature began climbing toward the cave. The guardian was climbing toward us. Massive root-like limbs pierced through the rainforest canopy while entire trees snapped apart beneath its weight. And somehow it moved silently. No roaring, no growling, just the sound of roots tearing through wet earth as the thing dragged itself toward the cave. Gianna grabbed my arm in panic. "We have to go now." We sprinted deeper into the cave while the entire cliffside trembled behind us. Dust rained from the ceiling. Ancient carvings cracked apart along the walls. And somewhere outside, the tribe screamed in terror and worship at the same time. The deeper we ran, the stranger the cave became. The walls changed from rough stone into something smoother, older, covered in giant root systems pulsing slowly beneath the rock-like veins. Then the tunnel suddenly opened into a massive underground chamber, and what I saw there nearly stopped my heart. Bodies, hundreds of them, not skeletons, preserved bodies hanging from roots growing directly through their flesh. Outsiders, explorers, travelers, people from different decades still trapped beneath the jungle. Some looked ancient, others looked horrifyingly recent, and all of them were connected to the roots somehow. The jungle wasn't just killing people, it was absorbing them. Gianna looked devastated seeing my reaction. "This is where the guardians take the chosen." The chosen, her voice trembled. "The jungle keeps their memories alive." That sentence made me sick. The roots along the walls suddenly pulsed harder, and whispers filled the chamber. Human whispers, dozens of voices speaking at once from inside the walls themselves. Then I heard something impossible, my name. Daniel, the voice sounded weak, human, coming from deeper inside the chamber. I followed the sound toward a section of roots near the center, and buried within them was a man, still alive, barely. Roots pierced through his chest and arms while dark vines wrapped around his throat like feeding tubes. His skin looked pale gray, eyes sunken but alive, dear God. Alive, he looked at me desperately. "Please," Gianna rushed beside me instantly. "Don't touch him. What happened to him?" Her face filled with horror. "He was chosen years ago." The man started crying weakly. "It doesn't let us die." My blood froze solid. The guardians weren't eating people. They were preserving them, using them, keeping them trapped beneath the jungle forever. Then the man whispered something that destroyed every remaining hope inside me. "It wants you next." Suddenly, the cave entrance exploded behind us. The guardian had arrived. Massive roots burst through the chamber walls while darkness itself seemed to spill into the cave around the creature. Its hollow face stared directly at me, and the whispers inside the roots became deafening. The preserved bodies started twitching violently around the chamber, like the guardian controlled them all. Gianna stepped in front of me immediately. No, the creature stopped moving. Then slowly it lowered itself toward her. The roots beneath the chamber pulsed harder, and suddenly I understood. The guardian recognized her not as prey, as family. Gianna fell to her knees trembling. The tribe made us descendants of the guardians. My stomach dropped. What? Tears streamed down her face now. The chief's bloodline was changed generations ago. That's why the tribe protected her, why she could move freely. Why the guardians listened. She wasn't fully human anymore. Then the chief entered the chamber behind the creature, covered in mud and blood, smiling. The entire tribe followed behind him carrying torches and ritual blades. The chief looked at me calmly. "You understand now." I backed away slowly. "You feed people to that thing." The chief laughed softly. No, he pointed toward the roots covering the chamber. We became part of something eternal. The preserved bodies around us twitched again, whispering endlessly through the roots. The chief spread his arms proudly. Civilizations die, empires fall, but the jungle remembers forever. Ayana screamed at him, "You lied to me." The chief's expression changed instantly. Cold, disappointed. "You were meant to bring him willingly." The realization hit me like a truck. I slowly turned toward Ayana, and her silence confirmed everything she knew from the beginning: the necklace. The escape, the river, the cave, all of it led me here. The chief smiled wider. The guardians chose him the moment he entered the forest. Ayana grabbed my arm desperately. "I was trying to save you by bringing me here." Tears streamed down her face. "You were never supposed to survive the ritual." The guardians suddenly moved closer. The whispers in the chamber became unbearable now. Thousands of trapped voices speaking together inside the roots. And then the chief raised his ceremonial blade toward me. "The jungle has waited long enough." The roots beneath my feet suddenly wrapped around my legs, and the guardian lowered its hollow face inches from mine. Then I saw it. Inside the darkness where its face should have been were human faces. Hundreds of them moving beneath the void, screaming silently, trapped forever inside the guardian itself. And among them I saw the rescue team, explorers, travelers, and horrifyingly I saw myself. The jungle already knew what I would become. The roots wrapped tighter around my legs, cold, wet, alive. I struggled desperately while thousands of whispers echoed through the underground chamber around me. And inside the guardian's hollow face, those trapped human faces kept moving, screaming silently, begging. The chief slowly approached while the tribe knelt behind him in worship. "The jungle remembers everyone," he whispered calmly. "You should feel honored." I could barely breathe now. The roots were climbing higher across my chest, slowly pulling me toward the guardian, toward the darkness inside its face. Ayana grabbed the chief's arm suddenly. "Stop this." The entire chamber went silent. The chief stared at her with genuine disappointment. "You chose him. I loved him." That sentence echoed through the cave like a gunshot. The tribe began whispering nervously among themselves. The chief looked almost sad now. "That is why you failed." Ayana stepped between me and the guardian while crying openly. "He doesn't deserve this." The chief raised his ceremonial blade slowly. "He entered sacred land. The guardians chose him. The ritual cannot be broken." Then the guardian moved again. Massive roots erupted from the walls, violently shaking the chamber while whispers became deafening screams. The creature was losing patience. Ayana suddenly turned toward me and whispered something that changed everything. "The fire." "What?" "The roots fear fire." The chief's eyes widened instantly. She wasn't supposed to reveal that. I grabbed a fallen torch beside the chamber floor and slammed it directly against the roots wrapped around my legs. The reaction was immediate. The roots shrieked, actually shrieked. A horrible, inhuman sound echoed through the cave while the vines recoiled violently away from the flames. The guardian jerked backward instantly. The entire chamber began shaking uncontrollably now. The tribe screamed in panic. Ayana grabbed my hand. "Run." We sprinted deeper through the collapsing chamber while roots exploded through stone behind us. The guardian roared louder than before, not angry, agonized. Fire spread rapidly through the dry roots along the cave walls, and suddenly the underground chamber became an inferno. The preserved bodies hanging from the roots started waking up. Their eyes opened. Hundreds of trapped people screaming together while flames consumed the jungle beneath us. The chief tried chasing us through the fire, but burning roots suddenly wrapped around his body instead. For the first time, fear appeared in his eyes. "Ayana." The roots dragged him backward, screaming into the darkness beneath the chamber, and then he disappeared. The tribe scattered in terror. Some burned alive, others vanished beneath collapsing roots while the guardian's screams shook the entire rainforest above us. Ayana and I barely escaped the cave before the cliff itself collapsed behind us. The jungle was dying. Massive trees crashed across the forest while the ground split open beneath the storm. The Guardian's enormous body twisted violently beneath the canopy as fire spread through the roots connecting the entire rainforest together. The jungle had been one giant living organism, and now it was burning alive. Yana stared at the collapsing forest in horror. "We killed it." Thunder exploded overhead. Then suddenly the Guardian screamed one final time, and everything went silent. No whispers, no drums, no movement beneath the trees. The jungle was finally dead. By sunrise, we reached the outer edge of the rainforest, the first real road I'd seen in weeks. I collapsed beside it completely exhausted while distant smoke rose behind the trees. Yana sat silently beside me watching the burning jungle disappear beneath morning fog. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then finally, I asked the question haunting me since the ritual. "Why did you really save me?" She looked toward the forest quietly, then answered, "Because I wanted a life outside the jungle." Months passed after that. Authorities searched for the missing rainforest using my coordinates, but they never found it again. Satellite images showed only ordinary jungle. No tribe, no cave, no ruins, nothing. People online called my story fake, hallucinations, survival trauma. Nobody believed me. Eventually, I stopped trying to convince them. Years later, I married Yana. We moved far away from South America, started a family, and for the first time in my life, things felt normal again, safe, until tonight. The rain tapped softly against the windows while our grandchildren sat around the fireplace listening to me finish the story. Their wide, terrified eyes stared at me silently. Then my youngest grandson finally whispered, "Grandpa, what happened to the tribe girl?" I smiled softly, and before I could answer, Yana spoke from the kitchen behind us, calm, gentle. "After your grandfather escaped with me," she said quietly, "I took him far away from my family." The children looked confused. "My family?" one granddaughter asked. Yana slowly turned toward the firelight, smiling warmly, and for one horrifying second, I noticed dark symbols painted beneath her sleeves, symbols I hadn't seen in years. Then she whispered, "Yes, my tribe." The room went completely silent, and outside beyond the house, deep within the dark woods surrounding our property, drums started playing again. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a nightmare. And comment your favorite part of this story and comment what should I make next.